So slowly during this time period, some sense, some order of this increasing number of chemical elements was beginning to take place. It was disconcerting, as I was mentioning, to scientists to have all these new elements being discovered. But again, even in this sort of darkness, intellectual darkness, if you will, scientists push on, and that's what we're doing. And they were only doing the one thing they could do, and that's classify elements based on their properties. And so you probably haven't even ever really thought about it, but just intuitively, when you look at a metal, you know it's a metal. And so back then, of course, the same sort of grouping took shape. So metals as a group of elements, or just a category of elements, was identified then, and that particular group still persists today. And nonmetals is a harder, more elusive grouping because both iodine, carbon, fluorine, argon are all nonmetals, and sulfur doesn't really look anything like oxygen, and oxygen doesn't really behave like iodine, and fluorine and chlorine are very different than all of these things. Some are gas, some are liquid. Iodine can be liquid, sulfur and carbon can be solid. All these are nonmetals. So this broad category of nonmetals, which exists today, was harder to define. And at the same time, even within the metals, subgroups were beginning to emerge, as we talked about in the last lab. So the alkali metals and the alkaline earth metals were two groups that were, kind of emerged as clear groupings based on, a defined set of properties. And so this leads us to this lab, where we are going to drill into one of these subcategories of metals called the alkaline earths. And we're going to compare two metals, magnesium and calcium, and simply your job is simply to figure out, to determine which one is more reactive within this subgroup of alkaline metals, calcium or magnesium. And we're not going to react with vinegar this time, we're going to react with water. You'll see why after you run the lab, but I'll get you set up in the lab video next.